Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. This is going to be episode 73. That's amazing to me that we've been at this for 73 weeks, Brooke. That's pretty fantastic, considering I can remember years before we started talking about wanting to do this.
Without missing a beat.
That's amazing. Today's episode is called It's Only Sensation, and this one's pretty near and dear to my heart. I can't wait to hear the concepts and the teaching, because you mentioned this phrase to me at one point, and I've used it just almost as a therapeutic mantra, just when I'm not feeling comfortable. And I've heard you say things like, take a nap. You always wake up different, and big no-nos, in the entrepreneurial world. It's like, the early bird gets the worm, and 10X factor, do 10 times more than everybody else. Reality is sometimes that's not the answer, but let's talk a bit about sensation and the role it plays in our lives.
Yeah, just to talk a little bit about what you just said in that piece, when the sensation is overwhelming, to override it is not always the prescription. It's like, buck it up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, whatever the phraseology is, and, get back in the game, get back on the horse, whatever it is. And the truth of the matter is sometimes that is appropriate, and sometimes just stopping and self-regulating is the important piece. That place of don't just do something, sit there, is the other piece that we really want to look at. That Western society has said, drive through. You can do this. You're resilient, whatever that is, and that all may be true. But having some assessment in the process can be really an important part. Sensation to me is the leader. It tells me where I am, and it is an indicator to me of something needs my attention. And that may be an internal part that is pinged from my history or whatever it is, but it's the leader. That's the piece that starts our processes, no matter what the process is. There's something that comes into the system that has a sensation to it, an anxiety, prickliness, a heartbeat, heat, whatever it is. And it is an indicator that there's something afoot.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to really listen to what is leading us into whatever it's leading us into. And an intensity of sensation, is a motivator. It's a motivator for change, typically in the context of what we're talking about. And when we've got an intense feeling, our first impulse is to get out of it.
Yep.
But it's our first awareness. And that's that place in the don't just do something, sit there conversation that we're just sitting down and listening, looking, feeling, and hanging out. Our first impulse in that is to reach for the switch, to turn it off, to find a way to make it stop.
Right.
And I don't think that that's the indicator here. We might get to that. There might be the place where we stay out of the vagal nerve override, where we stop and we go, okay, this is way too much, but I got to get through it. Or we stop and we go, I got space here. I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
And the consciousness of the sensation and the movement toward what it's about, is the importance that we're really trying to slow down and see here.
I've found pausing and just feeling things and knowing they're going to be different, as opposed to reacting and controlling and trying to change things, to be much more peaceful.
Isn't it?
There's no doubt in my mind when I had my mind set something in the past, when I had my mind set on something, I would make it happen no matter how many times reality says it's not time for this, or some sort of a closed door, or screw that, get an axe, just go through the door. And I feel like I do a lot more listening now. And even in this, I don't feel like there's a right or a wrong. I just feel more peaceful letting life happen and feeling the sensations that are appropriate at the time.
Right. And sensation always waxes and wanes. And it's
It has a tide, doesn't it?
Right. Right. And the beauty in that is if we can just slow down and not try to override it, but sit with it, there's a point that's going to come that it's going to wane, and we're going to be able to analyze a little bit more of what action is there. And there's another piece that's important to this, because not all sensation is unpleasant.
Yeah.
There's really pleasant sensation. And how is it that we can sit with that? Because for some of us, at some point, that good feeling can be overwhelming. And how do we sit with that and be able to watch that unfold as well? There's knowledge in both ends of this, but also in the wave pattern that goes with it, there is, when we're down at the bottom of the trough and things are really crappy and we're, just not digging what's going on, to be in this place of, this is temporal. This is not a permanent piece, and it's going to change. And the change from here is likely to be an impulse towards something that's more pleasant or something that's more regulating.
Yeah.
And having the willingness to be in that inquiry, to be in that process, can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not, there's a theme in my life with not fighting reality. So that's kind of how the grid I hear everything through right now. Same thing with the feelings, like there's times I wake up and I'm like, everything's pretty good, but I don't feel very good. I feel like things aren't good. I have the emotions that things aren't good. And it can be chemical, it can be physical, it could be lack of sleep, it could be bad pizza, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think my instinct in the past was make it stop and try to figure it out. Like two pretty unhealthy, sort of hopeless pursuits, right? Like, don't feel what you feel and try to find out where it came from, which is probably not information that's even revealed on the earth all the time.
Right. And you're trying to use the intellect to figure it out so we can manipulate to do whatever we need to do. And when we're in the activated state, we're not in a state that we can actually be in our intellect and try to figure it out. We're in that fight flight dynamic, and the cognitive process is turned off. So again, being able to ride this out, this moving with the sensation from the activation of, oh crap, into don't just do something, sit there. Rule number 4, and taking time to let the self, with the big S, self-regulate and further awaken.
Yeah.
So there's this part conversation that's going on, and there's this piece that's internal that's activated. There's a part that has some awareness of something needs its attention. And the attention comes from that creation of the observer self, that metacognitive process of looking internal, having a witness of what's taking place and going, no, what needs my attention? What is it that this part is looking for? And regulating so it can express and then further awaken into whatever awareness that is needed in the moment. Mm-hmm. That's the place where, we can go into, I have to do something here, or I just have to be present for this part that is expressing. So it knows that I'm here watching it express, and that it can downregulate. And the self with the big S is that piece that is able to self-regulate. Right?
Yeah, as you talk about that, I'm thinking about some of the police shows that are out there, and when somebody's relative is involved, or their daughter or whatever, but they're also a police officer, and you've seen these shows where somebody comes along and they're like, you're too close to this. like you're freaking out right now and not even being objective. Like you need to let us take over, or whatever that idea that your emotions are too involved, and thinking of parts almost as like the different police officers in the station or whatever. It's one part of us is kind of freaking out, and the self, sort of as the home group leader or the manager of the team, can come along and just be like, I get it. Something's going on. Your trigger is accurate, but you're too close and not able to be objective right now. Go to the coffee room, hang out. Well, let me get the team together and look at this objectively and get on it. Thank you for the alarm, right? But like, we don't need that thing blaring in our ear the whole time. Let's now take over. That kind of concept,
Right. And, as you get further into that parts conversation, there are parts that are doing that, to be in conversation with the parts that are doing that, and, what their role is and how they're trying to do that. And, learning how to be in that conversation, ask them to step back because they're too close to it, and let the self come in and be able to be a part of that conversation. It's multi-layered and it's fascinating.
I think I'm doing it daily without even realizing, just because I've been listening and taking this training and everything. Kind of what we mentioned last week, this is not that, right? Another version of that could be now is not forever. And what I mean by that is I believe I have a tendency, and I'm probably not alone in this, whatever I'm going through, to sort of picture, and my emotions are like, it's going to be like this forever. And that's what creates the anxiety or whatever it is. And there's waves as well in that any part of our lives, faith, family, finance, fitness, or whatever. But I've got some things going on, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it used to be so much better than this. I'm going backwards. Is this the rest of my life? And reality is, as always, this is just a moment in time where things are the way they are, and I wake up and do what I need to do, right? And I think I'm having some of that parts conversation without using the words with myself, because throughout the day I am feeling it. I'm feeling the sensation. Like I really, really am not happy with this and would not want the rest of my life to be like this, right? Freaking out a little bit at times, complaining at times, and then very different than I used to be. Having times where I'm like, well, what's true here? Has life always been like this in the past? No. There's been ups and downs. Yes. Right. Okay. If I call this a down, what's next? Probably ups, it just, life doesn't typically stay the same, and plus the harder the work, the luckier I get. And this is a season of very, very hard work for me, with the kinds of things that I'm going through. But I think that there's some maturity showing up from things you taught me that's really therapeutic and happening like daily. If somebody was like, man, I wish Mother Teresa would like be in my home and help me during my difficult parenting moments, right? What's the next best thing to, is somebody have taught you these wonderful things that kind of remain in your mind, and you can pull them up as needed.
Right. And this sensation, this piece with it, you're going through, that many of the parents that are listening to this podcast are going through, are in the intensity of the sensation. They're in that place. And to really understand that this is the crucible under which that we really gain resiliency, and we start to learn more about ourselves, and we're able to create the resiliency that we may need, or that we do need to make the next step. This idea that we can use this intensity to gain the containment that we need to utilize the fourth rule. As we come up and we find that we move into that intensity, and we reach the threshold of what we think that we can't handle anymore, and then we find that, oh, I can handle a little bit more, and that threshold changes, and the container of being able to navigate the next round of sensation becomes more available. And we're constantly working on creating that container and strengthening that container as we move through our lives for the preparation of the next round of whatever that next round is going to be.
Yeah. We have 6 kids, and 5 of them are teenagers at the same time, if you can imagine, 13, 14, 16, 17, and 19. And at times it feels like our entire lives are basically driving people around, listening to music we don't listen to, and being on rides we don't want to be on. Because we had Magic Mountain Passes, which is the Six Flags here in California, and there's a ride there. Some people might be familiar with it, called Goliath, the 280-foot drop to start the ride.
Thank you very much. No,
not for you, right? But we ride this thing, and I'm telling you, Brooke, there's a time at the end where you go into a kind of a tight spin where you're almost sideways, just going around in loops sideways twice. And I was on that and watched my vision closing in on me. I don't know what the G forces are, but my vision was closing in on me to where it was like a pinpoint, and I almost passed out. And I thought, oh my gosh, how is this even fun for anybody? But what I'm getting at is the next time I'm like, okay, here comes this short season, 10 seconds of spinning that didn't go well for me last time. How do I get through this? Because I know I have to. And I did different things. I did some deep breathing. I just tried different stuff, right? And eventually got through it. But the reason I'm sharing that is life is not just the spin. It's the whole roller coaster, right? And then when you're in that spin, when you're in that, just the dizzying G forces that are getting a bad decision from court, you know what I mean? Or hearing the same stuff that this ex has said over and over again and holding your tongue, disengaging. When you're in the middle of that G forces, it's not going to be that way forever. You got to just breathe through that and let it play out.
Right. And, just back to that place where, you were talking about, well, I have to do this. And that's kind of that override spot where, no, I don't have to do this. Somebody else wants to do this. I can let them do that, but I don't have to do that.
Right.
And where I engage with them because I want it to be more fun for them, and it's intensely uncomfortable for me, talks back to that place where that override is taking place, taking care of somebody else in that process.
Right.
And, we talked a little bit about this last week at our How You Do Anything is How You Do Everything type of a thing, where we're taking care of somebody else. And my job when I'm talking to you or talking to a client or anybody else is to listen to that patterning, because that patterning exists in you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So just a quick reflection.
Yeah, if you can find somebody's patterning and talk to them, they almost think you're clairvoyant. Wait a minute, how did you know? Well, I don't know.
You told me. That's how I know.
You told me, exactly. Yeah.
So sensation as the teacher.
So it's the leader, kind of happens first, right? And it's also a teacher of some sort. In what way?
So sensation is showing us something.
Yeah.
It's
dashboard style, dashboard light.
Right. It's pointing to, there's something here for you. And let's inquire into it. Some part is triggered. Let's inquire into that trigger. Let's inquire into not just the sensation and writing it out, but let's inquire into what it's about. Let it teach me what I need to know, because that trigger is something that I need to know. And if I sit with it long enough, it's like, oh, that's the pattern. Or, oh, that's what they're telling me. Or, oh, that's something that I didn't understand about me or my history or how I do things. And if we talk back to the last podcast and that fractal nature, we start to see that patterning, and that's teaching us something about what we can change.
Yeah. Right. Kind of everything. If you see everything as a gift and welcome it, whether the sensation is pleasant or unpleasant in the beginning, right? I mean, frankly, I'm not sure working out or working through an argument with your partner, I'm not sure any of those are pleasant. They just have incredible results. So dealing with the unpleasantries in life that on the other side have wonderful results, you can kind of see everything as a gift.
Back into this conversation that we keep having over and over. Thank you, Eric, very much. Thank you, Gene Schwartz, for all of your enlightened thought around the internal family systems. But these parts are teaching us, the more that we can sit with the reaction, the more that we can lean into the sensation, the more we can explore the opportunity to hear or understand what that part or what that time is infinitely valuable to undoing the patterning of what's taking place and creating a different reality or creating a different future for us. Mm-hmm. And, the part's triggered. What is the part and what's the part reacting to? Those are all inquiries.
Yeah.
That initially come out of sensation.
Yep.
And it's an invaluable opportunity to be taught something about ourselves. And that's what the sensation is bringing as a teacher. Translating and orienting to the stimulation. This is something that really requires our attention. This intense sensation is often disorienting. It takes us into a spin. We're unable to track what is taking place. And if we're able to settle into that sensation, if we're able to ride that out, if we're able to take on the fourth rule and navigate that and orient to the stimulation, where is it coming from? Then we can determine if this is real time or this is something else. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's real time. Sometimes this isn't just about history. Sometimes this isn't just about a belief system. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's something that needs our attention right now. And we have to be able to have this practice, this ongoing practice of orienting to that stimulation. Is this something that I need to respond to right now? Yeah, there's something that's coming at me and I need to move. Mm-hmm. Or, no, that's an illusion. I don't need to move. I can stand right here. So this practice of doing this gives us that opportunity to understand whether this is real time or whether this is something that I don't have to get involved with. Right. And if I don't have to get involved with it, then my nervous system learns how to self-regulate quicker and settle down. Yeah. Get on with business. Get on with life.
Yeah.
Listening to and taking direction from self. This is the separation. This is the uncoupling from parts. This is the place where we're allowing the self to be present to direct the action, where the part isn't directing the action.
Yeah, this is like, again, I can see that you have self in capitals and the people listening may not, right? Mm-hmm. So this is listening to and taking directions from the manager, not from the whiny baby part that's in a panic right now, throwing a tantrum, right? Which, is that a part of you? That is a part of you. But that's not what we mean by self right now. We don't say listen to yourself, like every single emotion you have or inclination, do it, right?
Right.
This is listening to and taking direction from whatever part of you is most objective and able to see clearly,
right.
Sort of.
That's the present time self.
Yeah.
But I want to be clear a little bit here, because not all of the parts that we're dealing with are whiny little baby parts. Some of these are manager parts.
Is that just me?
Some of these are protected parts. Some of these are other pieces that have other jobs rather than going, help me, help me. There's other people going on that I'm trying to help here, and I don't know how to help because I'm coming from a different place, or I'm going to reach for that cocktail or that joint or whatever it is because there's too much here and I want to numb out, and whatever these pieces are. So the self is the part. It's not the part. It is that presence-ness of us that can look at that part that's in some other time or some other place that says, tell me what you're doing here. Tell me what your job is.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing, but let's see if this is the right approach and if there's something else that we can do. So I just wanted to make that little bit of adjustment in the conversation, because this isn't just inner child stuff. This is that and so much more as we move forward.
I was joking that it's only me that all my parts are the whiny baby. But you're right. Even in a company, you can see every department thinks they're the answer to everything, and whatever they're dealing with is the most important piece, right? You go to a chiropractor, what's the answer to every problem in the world? Chiropractic, right? You go to a herbologist. There's something in human nature that just the part of it that you see, and I'm using part in a different way there, but the part of the problem that you see or that shows up in your world holds very high importance, almost like it's the answer to everything.
This is my knowledge,
and
so what I know. You're
right that every part's not a whiny baby. It's accurately alerting us to its gifting, what it's there to see, what its job to do. They just tend to be exaggerative.
Right. And I like that. I like that languaging. It's the gifting.
Yeah.
It's the gifting, because without those pieces, we wouldn't be able to be here and do what we're doing. There's been some adaptation that's gotten us here. And even if it's maladaptive, now we can start to change that adaptation. So again, the sensation conversation that we're having is this ongoing process of breaking it down like we have today. We've never really had this conversation of breaking down the sensation conversation like this. But being able to sit and allow the dialogue to open, that's the place where the sensation is not only the leader, but it's the teacher.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So that's it for today. Thanks for showing up again. Charlie, thank you for showing up again. I think that these conversations that we have are enlightening for me. It allows me to, sit in what I think I know and to dive deeper into that. And it's always, again, looking towards that threshold, leaning into what I don't know. And these help me with that as well as everybody else, I hope.
Pretty sure in 10 years, you and I will be talking and I'll be like, the only thing that got me through that time was recording those podcasts with you and my conversations with you. In the middle of it, it's just day to day, right?
Right.
But it sounds like from the feedback and from the growth of the listenership that we're seeing that people are benefiting from this. So keep listening, keep telling your friends. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, everybody. We're up.
Hey, everybody. Brooke and I just wanted to comment on an email that we received. Thank you so much for your feedback. Please keep sending your feedback. It is incredibly important to us, and we love to communicate with you. This particular feedback, I had mentioned that we get into some pretty deep topics and that the average listener may not be able to grasp them, or they may be a little bit too deep, and we put that to thought and talked about it, gave it some time, and that's really helpful and insightful. And our response to that is, do we feel like we should make the show a little bit simpler? And I hate the expression, but dumb it down, to what the average listener can handle. And we're choosing not to go that route, respectfully. And what we want to do is, rather than that, just issue a challenge, really, to say to you as the listener. I mean, this stuff I've mentioned on the show. There was a whole episode with Eric and Brooke where afterwards I'm like, I'm not even sure what all that meant, and I need to go back and listen. And can you guys help me? And I reached out to Eric and Brooke for deeper understanding, instead of us not getting into the deep topics, which are really important and have a lot of gems in them. Our response to that would be, let's invite you to reach out even more. If you hear something on the show that you don't get the first time around, by the way, all of the research says that you remember about 20% of what you listen to. So you should probably be listening to these episodes 5 or 6 times anyway to dig out all the nuggets, particularly if you're trying to change a pattern of writing back when your ex texts you or doing something. If you're going to, don't just do something, sit there. Part of what you can do while you're sitting there is listen to these episodes over and over again instead of communicating. But what we'd like to challenge you to do is, if something's confusing or you don't get it the first time around, just reach out. I mean, we'd love to hear from you. We would love to get specific questions. Man, I don't know what you guys were talking about when you said parts or when you said disengage or when you said this. Brooke and I are here for you. Just pop out an email, go to Brooke's website, give him a call. Share what you don't understand and dig deep and dive into it, as opposed to us making it simpler. Let's all become better. And that, Brooke, I don't know if you want to say something. That was really my thoughts, is when it's hard, let's not wish it's not hard, but rather rise to the occasion.
Yeah, what I want to do here, it's really easy. We read books about conflict. We read books about do this, don't do that. This is what's going on. But what I want to do with these is not talk about what to do, but how to be. To understand the deeper concepts of why we do what we do. And to use this as a platform for people to awaken to something that's really important in their lives, something that is far beyond just being in the conflict. Because when we start to take care of these issues and look at these from a place of understanding, there's an unfolding that happens that helps people change at a deeper level. I can tell you, don't answer the phone, but it's a lot better for me to tell you why you have the impulse to answer the phone and to delve into unplugging that patterning that takes you into wanting to answer that phone or to be defensive or whatever these concepts are.
Yep.
If we talk about these over time and you start to have a deeper inquiry about what we're doing, you are going to do a massively better job than just reading a book of how to.
Yeah, it's not about fruit stapling, right? You take an unhealthy tree and staple a bunch of healthy apples on it, and they look, it's healthy, right? If the fruits come, it's not the fruits, it's the roots, right? And in our world, because this is not agriculture, we're talking about human beings, it's not even just the roots, it's the soil, it's the sun, it's the environment. You can pick your tree up and move it to a completely different environment and be in different soil where trees can't do that. So we're having a soil and roots conversation versus a fruit stapling conversation, how to take an ugly fruit and rip it off and staple a beautiful one on there. It's not just how-tos. As you said so well, it's who you are. Let's change you at the core. I've always said that people are what they do and what they think. And we're working on both of those. How you think and how you act, and speaking is an action. So with those two things, you can really change your entire life. My thinking has changed dramatically because the content on these episodes is complex and deep and at a root level. And I, trust me, have read almost everything there is on fruit, changing your actions and the how-tos and be a good this and be a good that. But these concepts go to a much deeper level. So we are super grateful for that feedback, and apologetic if anybody's having trouble understanding any of the content. What we'd like you to do, reach out just to say, hey, I'm having some trouble understanding this content. Can you guys dig deeper with me? And let's do it. Let's dig deeper.
There's opportunity for us to be in conversation. I can't hit everything in real time. There's a lot of content that does come back and people are reaching out, and I may direct you to another podcast. I may give you a simple answer. Some of the things that are available to you, again, are consults with me, are these, practical pieces of how do I do this, but also the practical pieces of how can I change this long-term so this doesn't keep occurring. And that's what I do.
Yep.
I am very interested in what your feedback is and how to help long-term here.
Awesome. Well, good job. Keep sending the feedback and we'll keep responding from time to time.